Martial arts legend and overall general badass Bruce Lee once said, "Don't speak negatively about yourself, even as a joke. Your body doesn't know the difference. Words are energy and cast spells. That's why it's called spelling. Change the way that you speak about yourself and you can change your life. What you're not changing, you're also choosing." I first became acquainted with these words about a year ago when a good friend told me about this quote, and it deeply resonated with me because it put the finger on something that I've been doing wrong pretty much my entire life. I've never been good at minding my speech and truly respecting the power of words. Coincidentally, I've also suffered from bad self-esteem and the inability to deepen and evolve social relationships with the people that are closest to me. As I began to learn more about the Bible this year, I've also noticed that Bruce Lee's perspective is a very Christian one. It's a very religious perspective because the same message is found in the Bible. In fact, Jesus talks about how angry, vulgar language is a form of murder, like a gateway to murder. Metaphorically speaking, you are killing a connection to another human being when you speak to them in very negative, berating terms. Christianity is very careful about how you should mind your speech and make sure that it is helpful and constructive. That clashes with being an edgelord. It clashes with internet culture and the very strange way that social media tries to make some kind of virtue out of laziness. Unfiltered, brutally honest communication is also just very, very lazy, very careless, very inconsistent in a way. Being unfiltered in your honesty ends up with you not being very honest. If you really think about it, too much honesty becomes no honesty. Because if you are saying something as unfiltered as possible, as impatient and impulsive as possible, if you're just speaking purely with emotion, then normally you're expressing it so carelessly that it doesn't even accurately reflect what is your original position. It becomes full with potential for misunderstanding. And that's the problem with being an edgelord and then acting like society is against you. What I'm trying to say here is that the presentation is just as important as the message. You want to commit to a basic effort of thinking about what you actually think and then choosing the right words to express it. That is a more valuable position and approach to have to life instead of constantly claiming that you're misunderstood because you're just being too real, which really just means too vulgar and too impatient and careless in speech. There's nothing real about that if you really have to think about it. The delivery is as important as the message. When you say something and people don't understand you, you can't just put it on them. You have to put in a bit more effort. And the effort is scary. I mean, let's be honest. It is kind of frightening to think about the responsibility that we have as human beings with how we talk to one another and how we carry ourselves and how we conduct our messaging. It's way too easy to just think of yourself as a special, unique individual that's so tough and hard and everyone else is just way too sensitive. Yeah. Very internet, that whole mentality. And it's not very helpful. It's really not very helpful. If you look at psychology, what happens when you go to a shrink and you tell them, I have depression, I have anxiety, I have bad self-esteem, I want to get help with this stuff? Well, if they're a good shrink, and many of them do this, they help you monitor your self-talk. They ask you to analyze your inner narrative, the things you tell yourself on a daily basis, how you talk to yourself on a daily basis, even in the small stuff. Because that can cause a very powerful shift in how you talk to yourself. And you see this with not just a badass like Bruce Lee, you also see it with top athletes and business professionals. Very successful, ambitious people usually do the same thing. They deal a lot with affirmations and visualization. They are very careful with how they talk to themselves, how they talk to other people. They put a great deal in self-respect. And this is associated to all of these things, right? As I've begun to pay more attention to these things, my perspective has matured, broadened. I've been able to see things that I didn't see before. And it's made me overall a more tolerable human being. I especially think that this is difficult for men. If you're a man, there's an implication where basically it becomes tied to masculinity, right? A tough guy, a tough man, a real rock hard, man needs to be able to tolerate unreasonable amounts of verbal abuse repeatedly, and somehow that's going to make you stronger. You know, that whole sticks and stones may break my bones bullshit. I mean, that saying is just garbage. Nobody gets stronger by saying bad things about themselves consistently. Believe me, I've tried. I've done it for a long time. And it really just made me more confused. It just made me less socially savvy. It didn't bring about this miraculous hardening of character that people speak about. That's not how it works. So once again, this is why top athletes, business professionals, people like Bruce Lee, that's why they mind their speech and mind the way that they talk to themselves. And I just want you to know that there's nothing really oversensitive about it. I think, in fact, that you're sort of delusional if you're walking around thinking that there's tough people and sensitive people. I've known a lot of tough guys, and what's funny about tough guys is that they're tough to society, you know, in front of society. When they're interacting with society, society views them as tough guys, but then they come to me in private and cry like a baby girl and make it clear that they don't know how to handle emotions. And I've had those interactions with tough guys, and it's made me realize that there really is no such a thing as tough guy. Everyone is sensitive. Pretending that you don't care doesn't really make you a man. Making it clear to people that you have basic respect for yourself and that you expect other people to have it too isn't some kind of a flaw. And that's where the stereotypical idea of masculinity crumbles to pieces. The most insecure men I have ever known are basically replicating the role that Stifler has in American Pie. They're always making deprecating jokes at your expense. They're always proud to show how little they care. The irony, of course, is that the more you pretend that you don't have any flaws, any sensitive sides, any emotions, the more you pretend that you're not sensitive, the more sensitive you become. The most sensitive and insecure people I have known are the men who are always walking around overcompensating, acting like it's funny and cool to constantly berate other people and be negative and critical and say anything as a joke and put other people down, including, but not always, themselves. Let me just tell you this. It takes a lot more energy, a lot more effort, and a lot more maturity of character to lift people up than it takes to tear them down. Anyone can be bitter, complainy, negative, and just point out flaws. But to actually bring people forward, to lift people, elevate people, empower people, that is the characteristics of a true leader And masculinity, to its core, should be about constructive, healthy, positive leadership in a society, in communities, in your family, and your social circle of friends and associates. The last thing you want to do is surround yourself with people who sound like social media in real life. Everyone is sensitive. And I think the most realistic thing you can do is just learn how to work with it. So this philosophy of responsible speech isn't so much to take other people's... You're not supposed to go around and, take other people's insults to heart or care too much about what other people think. But it can be a good idea to just be mindful of what kind of people you have around you and how they are influencing you and how they are influencing your inner voice. Because while you do have responsibility for your inner voice and you're supposed to cultivate a healthy inner voice, your inner voice can also be shaped by your surroundings and what you consume on a regular basis. If you're hanging out with people who have a very careless speech philosophy, or you're spending too much time on social media and in comment sections, that's going to color your inner voice. So there's two components to this. You become what you're associated with. So be careful what kind of people you spend your time around, and be careful how you talk to yourself. And the two will empower each other and provide a better result. But this is also why it's important to not really associate too much with negative, bitter people who have a limited perspective on the world. Even if you disagree with them, it's going to color off on you. So the wisdom of Bruce Lee is about the subconscious, right? The subconscious needs to be handled every bit as much as the conscious. And it can be a difficult thing to see. Be careful about how what kind of people you hang out with, and be careful with how you talk to yourself. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing oversensitive about that. It's about truly taking care of yourself and treating yourself like someone who is worth respecting. And that's going to pay off massively. So take it from a former master edgelord. You do not become stronger or saner or better by being self-deprecating and being careless with how you speak to other people and how you speak about yourself. It's the complete opposite, and you don't want to have to live that lesson when you could be learning it from people like me. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments section. I hope you enjoyed this video, and just know that I plan on making more helpful content ahead, because I want to be a helpful person. And, well, this is one of my attempts. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching.